Interesting. Hey, everyone. So I'm clicking on the intro and it's not working. So we're just going to come to you live and we'll give all of you just a few minutes to be able to join us. Happy Thursday to everyone. And I'm super excited for this interview. This is Dr. Virginia. Dr. Virginia, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
You betcha. So as you saw on the title, it said, we are going to dive into remembering who you are. And I just before we went live, I said to Virginia, it's been so fun to watch her transformation. On our original call, what George Pransky calls like low mood, like low energy. And when we're at that state, it's simply because we honestly forgot who we are. And typically we forget who we are when we're living in insecurity. And when we live in insecurity, we look for strategy to override and overcome insecurity versus just coming from our natural self. And as chiropractors, we see this all the time in our practices. When individuals forget that they have an autopilot system called innate intelligence on board that can heal their body all of the time, every time, at the perfect time, they do all kinds of other things in order to try and be healthy. And like this Rona thing has taught us that people really don't understand their health, right? Like there's no number of masks that are going to make you healthy, right? There's no amount of gloving up that is going to lead you to better health and well-being. There's no amount of squirting stuff, which many times is toxic, that will lead you to having better health and well-being. But when we create from insecurity, which is what they've been doing around the world concerning this Rona thing, then we create strategy to cover up our natural state, and our natural state is health and well-being. Our natural state is joy. Our natural state is love. So Virginia, from your perspective, what's changed? Like, how have you, like, take us back to the beginning of forgetting who you were personally and professionally till now it's just like, wow, like you're a totally different person. So go ahead. Actually, you're not a totally different person. You're back to self. So go ahead.
Well, I don't even think you realize it happens, right? Until all of a sudden you reconnect again and feel that missing piece, right? So I don't know. I think I got caught up in running the business and being a mom and all the things and stuck in that stinking thinking, like you always say, of overwhelm, spinning those wheels and that is just, you lose joy there and you forget that inner piece of you and bringing it back to the basics again. And I needed a good swift kick in the rear end to wake me up to that again.
I love that, to wake me up. And Michael Neal talks about that in his book, The Inside Out Revolution. Actually, that Sid Banks says that, what we're doing in life is just waking people up again to remember who they are, waking them up again to come from that place of well-being, which is our nature. If we look at children, a baby wakes up at whatever time. If it's my grandson Ezekiel, he wakes up at the crack of dawn, just like his daddy did and I did, and he's ready to rock and roll. Like he's not worried about the day. He's just like, what's happening today? And so often we wake up and just start going through, like getting on the hamster wheel and going and going and going, like you said, the minutia. And on the hamster wheel, we forget to notice all of the joy around us. So what has been your most favorite benefit of being in the boot camp?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question because there's so many.
Well, you can name them all.
Well, I love your systems.
Thank you.
That's been a huge help. Just the DSS is just something to get me off that hamster wheel. Like, okay, today I'm going to do these things and simplify it. And I know if I do those things, it's going to work. The Facebook group, just being able to tap in and just even like if I'm not even sharing something, just to see other people's motivation, like, hey, I did this, and the wins. Like, I love that the group celebrates everybody's wins. You know, and you get cheerleaders, you get cheered on, you get those positive affirmations. You hear me. I mean, I think that was one of the things from our first call, is when we were speaking, you heard me and you got to the bottom of it versus just, you know, saying, okay, and brushing it off, or saying, well, what you need to do is, you know, because I mean, if you had said that to me at that point of time, I would have said, I don't need any more to do.
Yes,
because I
yes,
already
yes,
felt
yes,
overwhelmed.
yes.
And I mean, that was just a huge thing where you helped me break through my thinking. I love our weekly calls, the weekly things that you can jump on and just, I mean, all the topics are different. Like yesterday was intimacy. You know, things that you wouldn't necessarily think that you're going to get in a coaching group, because it's not maybe necessarily directly business related, but how you tie it all together. And it's so important to tie in our personal lives with our business lives. And so, I mean, I love those things. And the funny thing is, my husband loves it too. So I come home, like you and I talked our first call, and I tell him, okay, this is what we talked about today. And
That
he's
is
like,
so cool.
I love her, he says.
That is so cool. What do you think about yesterday's? You liked it?
I told him about yesterday's, and he's like, that's fantastic. He's like, I like her even more.
I told you guys on the call, all your husbands are going to be like, listen to her. You know, it was interesting. So we have 2 new modules coming. One at the end of June, and one at the beginning of August. So one is on irritable bowel syndrome. Dr. Don Klum has created an unbelievable program, and he's bringing it into the boot camp. And then the second one, you're the first one actually to know this. The second one is on insulin resistance. And I was telling him about our call yesterday, and how I was sharing with, you know, as for those of you who don't know, the boot camp is 86% women. And so I was just sharing with women, like, you know, I think Women's Live has done a lot for women, but it's also done a lot of cursing for us and made our lives more difficult than they need to be. And in one of those ways, it's almost like now our spouse has to be perfect, and all of these things have to be checked off in order to be intimate with them, which to me then says, like, my desire to be intimate with you as my husband is irrelevant in comparison to, are you doing all of these things? And I just encourage women, like, be intimate for the value of what you get for it, right? For the connection and the feelings that you get for it versus did he perform, or, you know, like whatever. And so I was sharing that with him, and he's like, you know, something I think women don't understand is that if a man feels set up, like if he feels like he's being manipulated, or, you know, like there is this checklist, it is like the biggest turn off. And it makes him like super insecure, and he's going to recoil and go into his cave, because it doesn't, I know there are times I've been manipulated, and I can see it and I can feel it. And I for sure don't lean into that relationship, right? I for sure don't lean into that conversation. And so I thought that was like a really great point of, in addition to what we discussed yesterday. So that total side note on that, you mentioned something about being heard during call number 1. And I want to tie this into practice, if that's okay for everyone, and to specifically ask you, do you notice yourself showing up differently in your practice? You know, and the feeling of connection that you experienced during our call was because I was coming from a place of fertile void, of no expectation. Right. And so what happens when we come from insecurity, we like, that person has to perform in order to make us feel good. Right. And we can sense that. And if on our call I had shown up like that, it would have been like would have been unimportant, but I had to accomplish my agenda. And I so often see doctors doing this in their practice. Like if practice starts to like go down, they feel insecure, right? So then they try and bring in all of these strategies, and they look for another thing for their consultation, and they add another layer in, and they do all of the talking versus absorbing. So let me ask you, what are you noticing about yourself in being able to just quiet your thinking and show up with no expectations and just show up out of the sheer joy of loving your practice members in service?
Oh my gosh, I feel more relaxed. You know, I feel more authentic. It's like you gotta take a deep breath and be okay with the silence sometimes. Like, wait for it, sit in it. If you ask a question, wait for them to answer and listen. And like you said, it just comes from the heart then. It goes where it's supposed to versus being directed to where one or the other person doesn't feel, like you said, comfortable or manipulated.
Did you envision that being a side benefit from joining the boot camp of just a state of ease?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think when I started with boot camp, I didn't anticipate that was going to be a benefit. I didn't have that it wasn't something that I acknowledged introspectively that I was looking for. But it became very clear right away that that was what I was looking for and needed.
I love that. And how are you showing up differently at home?
I think the same way, a little more relaxed. When I have that tendency to be like, like, why didn't you make my side of the bed? I can pull
Did
it
you
back a
tell
little
your
quicker.
husband we discussed that yesterday?
Yes.
And did he think it was funny?
Yeah, he's like, I can't believe you brought that up.
And just look at the joy in your face. You know, and for those of you who, obviously none of you were with Virginia and I before we got on this call, I was like, you know, every time I see you now for those of you who aren't in the boot camp, every single Wednesday, we all get together on a live mastermind at 1 p.m. Eastern. And it's so fun to see each other and to watch the transformation in boot campers. And yours is like exceptional of like how quickly you smile and how big your smile is and how clear your eyes are. And I suggested to Virginia to go back and look at our very first call and to see the difference. You know, like we are on the outside what we are on the inside, right? And you are just like, you know, just like glowing. And it's so fun to see. And how has all of this translated into growth in your business? What's happening inside your business?
It has been growing. It has been some of the best months that I've had. Even, I don't know, I'm trying not to even count COVID year. But I mean, last year and the year before, I mean, it's blown my numbers out of the water. And the thing that's the nicest thing about it is I can look now and see, well, because I've done X, Y, and Z. You know, I've had some other friends who are like, well, do you know why? What are you doing that's different? And I can say, like, Dr. Barb's coaching, and I have a system in place that I can follow, and it's awesome. And then I was like, my husband's been laughing because then like my slow days or my slow weeks, I get that panic a little bit, like, oh no, it's slow. But then I look back and like, this slow day would have been a busy day 2 years ago. Right. And it helps put that perspective in.
And you know, that proves the mantra for these past 8 months of thinking creates our reality. So how could that slow day have been busy and now it's slow? Like it was just a day. Like we assign, you know, it's kind of like, this seems like a lot of money to some people, right? If you're 4 and I gave that to you, it's like, wow, right? And then this at some point seems like a lot of money, but then at some point you're like $100, like I can't even go out to dinner for $100. I mean, here in Alaska, you can't, that's for sure. And the truth of the matter is this can never be anything more than $1. And this can never be anything more than $100. It's a piece of paper, just like it's a day.
Right.
So our thinking creates our reality. And for those of you who truly want a global transformation in your life, right? Because we're holographic. not just in your practice, but a true global transformation in your entire life, let's talk. I promise you, if I can help you, I'll tell you what that looks like. If I can't, I will direct you to someone who can. As the owner of the boot camp and Mama Boot Camp since 2017, I've done almost 800 one-on-one calls with chiropractors and students. Not everyone's a fit. I'm not a fit for everyone, and not everyone is a fit for our tribe. But I promise you, at the bare minimum, you are going to see things in a new light during our coaching call. So if we haven't connected yet, I invite you to, I'll put the link below, and let's jump on a call. So Virginia, what do you have to say to individuals who haven't jumped on a call with me yet?
Do it. What are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for?
Go forward.
And so here's the other thing. The boot camp closes to new members at the end of June. It will reopen sometime in September. I'm not sure yet when. I'm revamping the original content in the boot camp and just updating it, giving it a fresh new look. And so that's what I'll be doing in July and August and a little bit of September. So for those of you in the boot camp, get ready. It's going to have a little bit of a facelift. You know, last year, the year before, the membership portal became brand new, and now it's a really robust learning management system. And so then this year is the time to revamp the original content. I want to go back to your friends asking you, do you know how, like, why your practice has grown? And that's one of the things I love about the daily success sheet. It may seem tedious and it may seem cumbersome, and I get that. However, in order for a system to be successful, it must be measurable, reproducible, innovative, and we must eliminate discretion. So the daily success sheet gives us that opportunity to measure our success as well. When you have a really awesome month or an awesome week, you can go back and see your individual recipe. Like, oh my gosh, how did we blow it out of the water in June? We never have to ask that again. We can literally go back and you can see what you did on the first Monday of the month, what you did on the third Thursday of the month, what you did on the fourth, and for your entire team, so you can rinse and repeat and upgrade and leverage. So as we conclude, what's the biggest hidden benefit of the boot camp that you didn't expect that you are enjoying?
I love the modules. I love plugging into that. I will just turn that on in my car, my drive to and from work, so I can, always plug in and stay connected, stay motivated, get those little pearls of wisdom. And it's easy. I mean, it could take 45 minutes or it could take sometimes 2, but it's just something that I can plug into to be accountable and just to, fuel that thinking right off the bat, without having to go searching for it. It's right there.
Yes. And what we put in the top, remember, we have 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. And a thought is really just like an energy capsule that gets ignited to have thinking, right? So every thought, if you think of it as it just has this little own capsule, and then it gets ignited to have our thinking. What kind of capsules are we putting into our thinking to consider? And if you just base it on, the social media reels, it's easy to get frustrated, right? My husband was going to turn on the news last night, which we haven't watched since what's his name took office. And I was like, oh, please don't turn that on. The last thing I want to put into my thinking before I go to sleep at night is anything on the news. That's for sure. So yes, I will admit my head has kind of been in the sand since then, and I will come up for a breath during the next election. Virginia, thank you so much for sharing with us over these last 20 minutes. Thanks to each person who joined us. If this has done something and touched you, allow it to touch somebody else, and just do something super simple that we've all done 100,000 times on social media and hit share. That would be super fantastic. So, Dr. Virginia, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Barb. I appreciate you also.
Thank you.